And one of the cool things that Method allowed me to do last year, and it's a very, very cool thought, is they allowed me to think. They didn't give me a brief. They didn't tell me I had to come up with anything necessarily. We do a publishing platform called 10 by 10. And I founded the brand development group for a company called RGA in New York. And I've been doing some thinking about how brand has to change in the digital context. We really have to move from beyond single storytelling to building systems. We have to think about the double dynamic of our brand being informed by the user and being informed by the corporation. So I created a piece of work called Brands as Patterns. And it was fairly intentional to call it this. Patterns are very important to user experience designers. It's the way we help people interact. But really and truthfully, it was arguing against the foundational value of brand, which is consistency. I don't believe consistency is the most important part of a brand. And I'm going to give you a précis because it's not really what I came to talk to you about today. I'm doing some new research, some new thinking into how brands as patterns extends. But the basic thought was, if you think about a brand and you think about the most foundational element of a brand, is it's consistent over time. We know that that's hugely, hugely valuable. But if you think about digital products and digital environments and service environments and digital media, then the really interesting thing when you've started to create that, and I've been working in this for now 7 or 8 years, is the most important part of that is relevance. There's no point in making something that's hugely consistent if it's not relevant. And I started to notice that brands could be consistent but fail. Kodak, wonderfully consistent, entirely irrelevant. So what was going on? What was happening? We put together a panel at South by Southwest, of which I thought maybe 40, 50 people would come to. It's a fairly esoteric subject, brands as patterns. What does that really mean? We had several thousand people turn up at the first panel, and they asked for a second panel, and I had a very illustrious team of presenters with me. And we started debating this point. So I really fundamentally believe that the world in which we create our brands has changed. It's fundamentally changed, yet the tools by which we manage our brands stayed the same. So we know that brands are increasingly accessed digitally, but a less considered consequence is that the interface through which the brand is accessed is kind of a primary identity element. It's the business card, it's the moment. We're no longer putting logos on tails of planes because it doesn't mean anything to anyone. What we're doing is having immediate, visceral interaction with our users and customers every moment of the day. So it's not just about symbols. So that really implies that your brand is an interface, which means that it's both informed by the user and defined by the user as it is by you. And the increasing power of technology means that it's going to be informed quicker by the user and more profoundly by the user than it is by you. So when you think about defining a brand, it begs the question to say that it's not just about defining it through repetition or consistency. There's a kind of Coca-Cola, incredibly powerful brand just by hitting the message at the same time over and over again. But because it's an interface, it kind of implies that the brand has to be defined iteratively through successive releases and through behavior, through interactions. When you start to think about a brand like this, it challenges the idea that consistency rules. So brands have to be both iterative and consistent. And I think this was like a head-scratching moment about 7 years ago. I was thinking, well, hold on, this is a dichotomy. These things can't exist in the same place. How can something be consistent and different? And of course, I started to think about music, because I kind of had a music major at college too. And I thought, God, in music, something can be entirely consistent but different every day. So we all know that we love a tune, but it's remixed, it's relaunched, somebody else does a cover version of it. It's still the same tune, but is it? It's different. It's always different. And actually keeps it alive. So the idea of music, when they're thinking about consistency, is there's an underlying reason to make something relevant, to make it the audience fall in love with it again and again and again. And that goes back to Mozart, renditions. They weren't playing the music. The music was just the beginning, and what they were playing was a relationship with the audience. The audience dynamic became the most valuable piece of the experience. So when you start thinking about brands like that, can brands be patterns? Can brands organize themselves with patterns? Which means a pattern is, one of the rare things about a pattern is that it can be consistently variant over time. You can look at it, and every way you look at it, depending on the rhythm, it can be new things and change. So I fundamentally put across the idea that brands really today are patterns, and the way we should start organizing them are patterns. And I think that creating the powerful brands that Scott was talking about is really and truthfully about existing in today's agile environment, and you've got to formulate coherency. And I use coherency very, very carefully, because I hear it every day. Everyone says, oh, I want my brand to be coherent. And I'm starting to think, what do you think that means? Do you mean consistent? Because I think coherent and consistent are different. I think that you can be consistent and incoherent. I can be incoherent, probably now. Probably I'm being incoherent fairly consistently now. And everyone's kind of like, what is he? He's the crazy man. Piers was right. This man has no reason to be on the stage. But I think that creating brand futures is about creating a level of coherence in your brand. That means that you can be agile. That means you can be relevant. You can adapt. And you can kind of use the story as a foundational element, like the music, which you can riff on. So that's a lovely thought. That was a quite esoteric presentation, South by Southwest. Went incredibly well. I got a few thousand people following me on Twitter that was asking me loads of questions that I didn't have any answers to, because it was just a thought. And so I spent the last year just talking to clients. What does it mean? What are brands and patterns? I walked around touting for business. I worked restoration hardware, worked with Martha Stewart and MSLO. I helped launch Nike Fuel Band. And the more I started to speak to clients, the more they were demanding this. The less valuable they didn't want a brand project. They didn't want something that was a 4-year vision. They wanted a 4.5-week vision so that they could actually think about how their product was going to launch. So I spent the last year really truthfully trying to think about what would be the first chapter in a book, if it was a book, but it probably wasn't. Probably be some kind of like site that you can change. But what would be the first chapter in a patterns narrative? And I kind of happened across this thing called frequency, and thinking about designing your brand over time. And I think it's one of the most profound things that we really forget is that our brands exist in iterative time space. That means that time every single day is changing and shifting. So what does it mean? Brands today have to be both iterative and consistent, so let's concentrate on iterative. Your brand has a frequency. And I think, look, I've said there's 6. There may be after this presentation 12, because you might have other thoughts. But I see 6 overlapping frequencies that are really valuable to brands and companies. The world around your brand has a frequency. And this is fundamental. It seems obvious to say this, but, we don't put our messages, our products, our articulations, our service experiences out there in a world that doesn't shift and move. And I think that, the idea that the frequency really truthfully is this building block of patterns. And I think if you accept the idea of the iterative world, and you accept the idea that you're going to come up with something new, and you're going to be innovative and launch new products, you've got to know that the context that you're launching this product into is like a moving target. Your customer has a frequency, and I don't like the word consumer. It's so presumptuous. I'm not a consumer. I don't wake up in the morning going, consume breakfast, consume this, consume that. No, I'm a person. And I think that consumer, user, customer, they're states. They're states of interaction of people. You can be a consumer, but you don't describe yourself as being a consumer. So your customer has a frequency. They go, why do we sell cars every quarter? Why do we do ad campaigns? I don't understand. You buy a car every quarter? No, I buy a car when my other car wears out. So why doesn't the car tell me when I need a new car? Why doesn't my printer tell me, you know what, the way you've been using me, it's not really great for what I'm good at. Why don't you buy this printer? Why doesn't the printer tell me? Because it knows how I'm using it. Why did I get an ad telling me? It's not helpful. So pushing out the idea of pushing out these quarterly messages, I don't really understand it. And I think that the customer's frequency of consumption, frequency of use shifts. Your communication has a frequency, and this is phenomenal. I think, the first question I asked MSLO was, what's your brand frequency? They went, oh, it's the mad guy. He's going to ask us something odd we don't understand. And they said, well, I don't know what you mean. I said, how quickly can you make content? They were like, oh, I don't know, like every 2 weeks, maybe every month, because they're a magazine-based, editorial-based culture. And I went, and what communication channels are you using? Well, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter. And I went, and what's the frequency of those? Is it every 2 weeks? Mm-mm. So why are you using it? Because you're pushing out messages every 2 weeks to a channel that could be every second, that could be every month, that could be every week. Your music is out of context. So communication has a frequency, and your ability, to kind of create communication has a frequency. Most people haven't got 1,000 people in the marketing department. Some of my friends who I help with startups have got one person who makes the product, who's coding the product, who's launching the product. They're going to be incredibly successful thinking about products. And this is phenomenal. The development of your product or a service has a frequency. How quickly can you deliver it to market? Can you maintain how quickly you delivered it to market last time to this time? Can you match it? Thinking about supply chain, have you got the muscle to organize the supply chain to get your product to market? And, are you thinking about the next 5 products when you launch this one? Or are you just thinking, God, I haven't got time to think about it? Development of products and services has a frequency, and you can choose to shift it, and there are organizations that can help you modify and modulate your frequency. Your competition has a frequency, and this is lovely. Successful companies all the time kind of go, well, that's it. We know what we're doing. We're going to launch, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. This is a product. And then suddenly, someone who doesn't have a development cycle and doesn't have 100 staff comes in from the bottom and just says, I could get this out next week. What do you mean next week? I mean, surely you're on the cycle. Surely we're doing quarterlies. No, it's just me. I'm going to make it today. I'm going to completely disrupt your marketplace. Your story, it's a fantastic story. Maybe put it in a book in the library. But I'm going to disrupt your business, and you're going to fail. And the brand has an operational frequency. And this is the thing that asked me. I work in a brand company Method. We do a lot of brand communication, a lot of brand positioning. And usually, the frequency of brand is once every 4 years. You invest something like $1.2, $1.5 million if you're a very large corporation, maybe slightly more, maybe $25 million every 4 years. I don't know what's happening in 4 days. In fact, I did not know what I was doing for this presentation more than 4 or 5 hours ago. So it's immediate. We've got to be more immediate. You can't think about brand every 4 years. So unless you've got a crystal ball, in which case, fantastic. But I don't think you can do this. You can't organize yourself like this. So really, truthfully, when you start to think about delivering your brand has a performance. And delivering that performance, it relies on these interconnected frequencies. Think about it in bands. If you think about like engineering terms, these frequencies have bands. If you start doing the wrong one at the wrong time, it doesn't matter how brilliant your communication was, if loads of people go to the store and can't get your product. It doesn't matter how good your product was if no one knows it's at the store. It's not good enough to have a great product if the technological platform that it's built on is shifting and no one has trust in it. So the frequency, really truthfully, I think great businesses and successful businesses going forward have a story as an underpinning. They do have that meter, they do have some piece of music, but really successful brands are the ones who modulate the frequency of their organizational pattern. They think about the user, they think about the customer state, they think about a consumer state, and they organize their brand to be able to modulate. I can speed things up. Look out there in the world, who's doing this? We talked a little bit about Apple. So this is 6 years. You can roughly see the bar lines. I'm a musician, so I made it look like a piece of music. And this is a product launch. This is actually Apple iPhone product launch. And along each year are 12 months. And I started to map the product launches. And I went, holy crap. It's like a drum beat. June, July, June, September, October. Why did you do that? Steve Jobs died. They modulated their frequency. It was phenomenal. Can you imagine how difficult it is to get even the screws and the bits of glass for like 5 million, 10 million of these to market at the right time once, 6 times, consistently? Why did I want an iPhone 4 in June? Because I had an iPhone 3 in June. It was phenomenally well organized. So, okay, product launch. Everyone does product launches with mobile phones. Maybe it's just part of mobile phones. So here's the iOS updates. First, 1.1 all the way through. And I found a really interesting thing. In 2010, if you can see there, the first orange dot before the pink, that was iOS 3.2. That came out before the iPhone 4, but it had all of the functionality of the 4. Oh my God, you just used software update to sell me a phone. I had a 3 with the functionality of a 4 that wasn't performing very well. And I went, oh yeah, I like this. This is great. Yeah, I want one of these 4s. They gave me something free. It wasn't a message. It wasn't an email shootout. It wasn't an ad. They gave me a piece of software for free on a product that didn't really support it. They've been phasing out the ones behind. If I was to just show you the way, iOS 1.1 disappeared, suddenly your product can't be updated. You're obsolete. You're old. That's your mom's phone. So, okay, fine. Okay, software and hardware. Well, software is probably organized by the CTO. Hardware is probably the head of product. What about marketing? And there's the marketing in blue. Significant, unique TVCs. And you see, conventionally, do a marketing campaign before people come to the product. Fantastic, that's our first launch. Then we synchronize it. Then in 2009, I think that is, it post-dates the launch. I don't need people to buy it. People love us. Why? Because they know the product's coming. I don't have to do an advert to get people to buy something. And then underneath, I thought, well, look, what are the relative, what's the other drumbeat, the other parts of the campaign, press ads, email communications, and this is how it goes. And I was looking at this thinking, looks nice, kind of pretty, looks very regulated. And I went back to music and went, looks like a step sequencer. So I thought, well, why don't we just let it be music? So if you think about the software launch, there's the harmony. It's set in an odd, irregular pace. Okay, this is beginning to work better. I'm hearing a tune. So, software launch. Okay, this is good. It's almost a little Jimi Hendrix. I'm liking it. Product launch. That you can't ignore. It's not a story, it's not a piece of communication, it's a rhythm. And they organized 6 years of a brand, one product. And they organized the frequency of the product, the software releases, the communication strategy, and the underlying communication parts to create almost, and I'm not saying that this is because I've not finished the research, it's just research. It's almost a Pavlovian response. I know it's coming. So, okay. It's kind of odd, interesting. Hopefully you liked it. Thank you very much for Walter, my friend Walter Vazoa, who did the music. I'll share that video later so anyone can have it. So what kind of mind? Look, okay, so this is interesting. You're thinking, okay, brands aren't consistent, that's gone. We now have to organize our brands over time. That means we probably need to meet once every month rather than every 4 years. How are you going to help us do this? Because, I'm chasing the shall we say, the established mindset of the way brands are organized. I'm chasing it down like a tiger chasing a gazelle. I'm saying, you're not good, you're out of shape, and I do this for a business. I'm going to chase you down, and I'm going to show what you're doing is not going to help people. And I need to have a plan. So who do I go to? What kind of mind can help us, me, you, comprehend the idea of a brand frequency across shifting contexts? Now, when I presented brands as patterns, I talked a lot about interaction designers and user experience designers because they design over time. It's fundamental. And at Method, that's the core of our offering is interaction design and user experience design centered around the user need, similar to what Scott was saying. But I'm thinking that a surfer might be able to help us. super abstract. But what I love about surfers is they think about time, but shift in context. And so I started interviewing surfers thinking, maybe I get nothing back. And it was scary, because the surfer mindset is to say, I'm good at what I do, I know how to do it, but every day I'm going to test myself, because the context for which I practice my sport shifts every hour of every day. So 6 rules that surfers have helped me understand about building brands. Never turn your back on the waves. Fairly obvious, but innovation cycles, my goodness. I love Levi Strauss. I worked with them for a long time, and I spoke to them when I left working with them. I did 4 years of working with Levi's. And I said, you made a really great product in 1873. And it was good. What's next? And you know what? If that's a surfer, I don't think he's going to be a very great surfer. Surfers, no matter whether they're chilling out, relaxing, they're watching the waves, they're counting sets. They're counting what's coming. They know what's coming 1 mile out, 2 mile out, and 5 mile out. They woke up in the morning. They looked at the kind of weather patterns. They know what's coming because they're going to live or die based on knowing what's coming. Create 2 types of operational muscles. I mean, this is actually, for me, blew me away. So you're sitting on an ocean. I said, well, when's a great wave? When do you decide? And they said, well, it's very much about being in touch. It's about listening. It's about feeling. So there's sensorial sponges that take everything in. That's great. Maybe they're cool. Maybe they're relaxed. But when a wave comes, they flip. They have humongously powerful instincts to kind of balance and poise and power. So they have a powerful muscle and a relaxed muscle. And they kind of let those 2 things coexist within one body. And it's schizophrenic, but it means that they can be successful. It means that when a wave comes, they put themselves in the right place. And they're able to perform when that wave comes. Be familiar with Model 1 location. This was just really mind-blowing. If you think about a surfer says, look, if context is going to shift, then I'm not going to decide to go to a beach. I'm going to decide to go to many beaches. And I'm going to decide when I get there which beach I'm going to go to, because I know the way the point, if it's a point break, if it's a beach break, they know their breaks, they know the rhythm, they know the swell. This is suggesting that brands need to have more than one market. Everyone does a market positioning, don't they? Here it is, you're the top right-hand corner. I'm saying, well, you're top right-hand corner, but you're also the top left, could be the bottom. Depends on the swell. Preparation's everything. The swell is a universal thing. You need to sit there every day. You need to grease the ball, wax the board. You need to really understand how to make your business buoyant, your business able, and your business able to respond and react. Look for patterns. Pay attention, even when you're doing amazing things. Because by understanding the patterns of context and understanding the patterns of your consumer shifts and your customer and user shifts, you'll start to understand whether your market dynamic's shifting, when it can be flipped. Do rather than say. Every surfer I spoke to said to me, you'll find somebody who really surfs because you ask them, did they surf yesterday? Did they surf today? And they'll say yes. Because any surfer that doesn't surf today is less of a surfer because they don't immerse themselves in the context. You've got to do, you've got to make, you've got to build. If you're a product company, build products. If you're a communication company, build communication. If you're a service industry, build service innovations. Keep making, because every single kid out there that's got $500 in the bank and a laptop, they're going to keep making, and they're going to eat your lunch. Adapt often. Amazing thing I never knew about surfers is they've all got about 10 or 12 boards. They don't have one state. They don't have one way of being in the world. They modulate their way of being depending on the context of the ocean. Enjoy improvising, because it's not going to go to plan. You've got to be able to respond. And I love some of the moments of discretion from Apple, from Tim, when you think that he's going to say something and he doesn't. I'd say that Tim's probably responsible for the concise rhythm of Apple. He modulates the organization. He says we shouldn't respond to this. He says we should respond to this. But you can't repeat a wave. It's not skiing. You can't ski a run again. You just have to go, okay, I fell off, but I'm going to do it again. Or I'm slightly wobbly, I'm going to make it happen. Don't rely on a fixed strategy. And this is shaking the underpinning of brand. Fine, we're going to do a 10-year strategy. This is the thing we need to be going with. That's a lovely idea. And in a fixed world, that's going to work. But everything I know about technology, everything I know about the shifting context of business today means that the fixed world is gone. You will not be creating continual narratives if you repeat them. You'll only be creating continual narratives if you modulate them, if you shift and change, like a musician would on stage. And we all know this is true. Know where the sharks are. So look, that's what I've got. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of something next. I'm trying to put together a very ordered set of values for brand patterns. And I'm going to be pushing out another 10 by 10, probably the end of this year, to brand frequency, designing your brand over time. So please do send me thoughts, please do send me ideas. They'll make them in, and we'll make sure that whatever we produce next will be iterative. Thank you.